As Sherry mentioned, the title of the talk is Knowing is Not Enough. I'll start with a little story and then we'll proceed with the talk. You've all heard of Sherlock Holmes? Yeah? Okay. So Brother Sherlock was out there in the fields with Watson in hot pursuit of a suspect. And now it was evening time and they decided to pitch a tent for the night and continue the following day. So they pitched this very simple tent in the fields and go to bed. In the middle of the night, Sherlock wakes up Watson and says, "Hey, Watson, when you look up at the sky, see all those stars, what does it tell you, dear Watson?" Watson's, what? Stars? What does it tell me? Well, astronomically speaking, it tells me that this is an expanding universe and there are billions of stars out there. Astrologically speaking, it tells me that Saturn is in Leo. Theologically speaking, I'd say that the Lord has created this incredibly magnificent universe. Time-wise, I'd say it is about 3:15 in the morning, and climate-wise, I can bet my right eyeball that it's going to be a brilliant day tomorrow. What does it tell you, Sherlock? Watson asks. So then Sherlock is glaring at Watson and he says, "Well, dear Watson, when I look at that night sky, practically speaking, what it tells me is that some nasty bugger has stolen our tent." Practically speaking, knowing is not enough. So when you look at the world and you see this overwhelming suffering and sadness in this world, what does it tell you? In every corner of the world there's pain and suffering, this fiasco of every kind. When you look at this pain and this sadness and this difficulty, what does it tell you, dear Watson? Come on, let's warm up. Here she comes.
Knowing about it is not enough.
Knowing about it is not enough, we have to do something. Okay? Yvonne, there's a place right here. Yvonne? Executive chair. Okay. What else does it tell you when you see the pain in this world? What does it tell you? Yes, Sister Nicole.
We don't have the tools to cope with what life demands of us.
We don't have the tools to cope with what life demands of us. Okay? What else?
There's a lot of inequality in the world.
There is a lot of inequality in the world. Okay. Something else?
There's a lot of potential for improvement.
There's a lot of potential for improvement. Okay, that's a good one. Brendan, what does it tell you?
I wonder whether that's just the way things are. Like, maybe that's just the way things are. Maybe you can't be any better.
It can't be any better. Okay, wonderful. You want to go stand in the corner, Brendan? All right. Sherry, look at I'm not karano. Pachi karano. Yeah? Okay, what it tells me, the question, Yvonne, is when you look at the suffering and sadness in this world, this overwhelming sadness and suffering, what does it really tell you? And we got some interesting answers. Now what it tells me is that people in the masses do not know how to relate to themselves correctly. They don't know how to love themselves correctly, and therefore it is very difficult for them to love anybody else or anything else. Because fundamentally, the core issue in this world is that people don't know how to relate to one another. That is the core issue. And the reason we don't know how to relate to one another is because we don't know how to relate to ourselves. Yeah? What it also tells me is that these very people who suffer, even when given the opportunity to do something about it, they will turn the other way. They will not look for the solutions being presented to them. They will turn the other way because they're more interested in their distractions. They're more interested in other things than to improve their communication skills, than to improve their vision of themselves and the world they live in. That's what it tells me. That regardless of how much we ask these people to come and do something about their lives, they always have an excuse for why they will not. Even though they suffer, repeatedly they suffer, they will not take positive steps to do something about their situation. Even when given the tools, they will not take those tools. How sad. Incredibly sad. And this is because ignorance is there in this world in an incredible form. And ignorance is not just about the negation of knowledge of the insightful kind. Ignorance is about the misdirection of the mind. Misdirection of the mind. That no matter how much we try to point people in the right direction, they will want to look in the other one. It's crazy. Yeah. Many years ago, scientists, when they were looking for the basic building blocks of life, nuclear scientists, when they were looking for the basic building blocks of life, they came upon an incredibly startling discovery. Do you know what that was? The basic building blocks of life. They discovered that there were none. These guys, going with their microscopes deep into subatomic particles to find the basic building blocks of life, they discovered that startling fact that there are none. There are only relationships. Dynamic, fluid, spectacular relationships. There are no individual building blocks. This basically means that these subatomic particles, the neutrons, the electrons, the protons, photons, whatever they are, okay? These incredibly tiny subatomic particles never exist alone. Never. They always exist in a network of relationships, reaching out to other particles. So even though these physicists label these subatomic particles as a neutron and an electron and a whatever, even though they're labeled differently, these subatomic particles never really become visible unless they are in a relationship with other particles. This is what the Buddha talked about many years ago. It is called the law of dependent arising, which says that nothing in this universe stands alone. You don't stand alone. Everything is dependent on everything else. It's all an incredible bundle of potentiality existing in this world and beyond. These subatomic particles never become visible unless they are in a relationship with other particles. How do you understand that? Let's look at physics. It's very simple. Very simple. I'll give you some examples. When you combine 2 atoms of hydrogen with a single atom of oxygen, what do you have? A water molecule, H2O. But this H2O, this water molecule, is not visible till it is in a particular set of relationships with other atoms. Yeah? And when you combine 2 atoms of hydrogen with 2 atoms of oxygen, what do you have? It's no longer a water molecule. It becomes hydrogen peroxide, a very different compound. And then, when 2 atoms of oxygen are combined with 1 atom of carbon, what do you have? Carbon dioxide, another compound. That's how things manifest themselves, and in this fluid dance of life, they change partnerships and relationships. Carbon, just for your information, this carbon atom is capable of forming 10 million different compounds. Can you imagine the vastness of that? 10 million different compounds from this carbon atoms. From its humble appearance on the world stage as graphite, which is one of the softest substances on this planet, to its magnificent appearance on the world stage as a diamond. Carbon, okay? So many different appearances and so many different combinations. And these combinations become apparent only when they exist in a particular set of relationships. Remove that set of relationships and it turns into something else. Yeah? So how does it relate to you in your everyday life? How does all this nuclear stuff relate to you?
We have to choose our relationships.
We need to be very conscious of the relationships we keep. Yeah. Not just with people, but with everything else in this world. Very conscious. Human kindness and human cruelty always manifest in relationship. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. Human kindness and human cruelty always manifest in a relationship with something else. This means that every moment we do have the choice to team up with wholesome qualities within us or to team up with unwholesome qualities. And the choices that we make determine our destiny. So when we choose to be insensitive, what will we evoke in others? What kind of relationship will we create with others when we go around with that insensitive atom? What kind of bonding will we have with others?
Negative.
Ah, so negative, painful. But are you aware that every little thing, every little quality that we choose to embody comes in a package deal? The moment I choose to be insensitive, I will also evoke or arouse the other members of the flock to come walking through the door. Which means that I cannot be insensitive without being arrogant, without being, what else?
Uncaring. Uncaring.
Uncaring, arrogant, selfish, greedy, fearful, impatient. The members of the flock come marching right in through the door. Just like with a single word in the English language, which, if you look at the thesaurus, it has other connotations. Love, It's not just love. It's caring, it's affection, it's compassion, it's also wisdom if you're loving correctly. So many things come along with love. The same way, so many things come along with different qualities that we choose to embody. It's all existing in relationship. So when I choose to be sensitive and loving, the destiny I am creating for myself is very different than when I choose to nurture unwholesome emotions or unwholesome thought patterns. Yeah? Everything exists in relationship. Things are not happening to us. Please understand. Your circumstances are not happening to you. Your circumstances are happening by you, by the quality of choices you are making from moment to moment. And therefore it is very important for us to learn how to choose well, because we do have the tools to master our circumstances. We're just not applying those tools correctly. Yeah? Okay. The practical application of this fact in our everyday life means that we need to form wholesome relationships, not just with the qualities we embody, but also with other people and also with everything, the fullness of life. Because to not create wholesome relationships with the fullness of life is to keep certain doors open for fiasco to walk in. Because any time you are negligent of even the smallest of things, that neglect breeds suffering. Are you understanding, please? How tidy is your closet? How tidy is your car? How tidy is your office space, your home environment? Anytime there's a neglect somewhere, that neglect will then seep into other things. Important, therefore, to form relationships with the whole, not just with people, not just with certain things, but with the whole. It is imperative. Okay. To underscore this point a little more, suppose you were the king or the queen of a small but progressive country. Yeah? Suppose you were the king or the queen of a small but progressive country, and you wanted to send an expedition across the ocean to another country. But this is 200 years ago, okay? Not now. And there were no aeroplanes, only ships going across the ocean. Suppose you were the king or queen of a small country 200 years ago, and you want to send an expedition to another country across the ocean to open up a trade route. Who would you select as the most important person for this expedition? Would it be your ambassador? Would it be the captain of the ship? Would it be the cook? Oh, we must have the right food. Would it be the engineer? Who would it be? Who would you select as the most important person for this expedition, for the successful completion of this expedition? You are in power. You're in charge. You select. Yes, Aaron, who would you select?
I'd go with the captain.
You'd go with the captain?
Yeah.
All right, he's backing that horse. How about you? Who would you? Pardon me?
Your ambassador.
The ambassador. Okay, he has to be a good linguist and charm and so forth. Okay.
Engineer.
The engineer stoking the fires down below. Okay, because the ship needs the fuel.
Could you send them all?
Hmm?
Could you send them all?
Yeah, he's sending everyone.
Oh.
He's sending the whole pack. They don't exist in isolation. The whole pack is going across. But who's the most important person? Josh.
The ambassador.
Ambassador, oh, okay, you're too close to that one.
How about the person that plans the journey?
The navigator, the helmsman, the person who plans the journey. Okay. Yes, Jenny, tell us the most important person.
I'd say captain.
The captain. Yvonne.
I was thinking more of the most amiable one.
The most amiable, the most endearing person there.
Yeah.
Okay, good shot. These are all important roles, very important roles. But there's one person who eclipses all these roles.
Yourself, the king, or the queen.
But you're not going across.
You're not?
No, no.
You choose yourself, can you not?
Okay, let's put him in the boat. All right, let's put him there. But he's not the right guy. No.
There's somebody else you've not mentioned.
Yes, someone I have not mentioned.
Designer of the ship.
Hey, the designer of the ship. Why is this person the most important person? Pardon me?
It'll withstand everything.
It has to withstand the journey to that distant land and back. Yeah. The designer of the ship. Someone we don't even consider. When I was teaching in Sweden, there's a place in Stockholm. There's a small museum erected around this ship. And there's a story about this ship. I think it happened about 200 years ago. The king of Sweden at the time was a little bit of a nutcase. Hey, is it being recorded? Because when his designer of the ship was halfway through his design, the king decided that he wanted his ship to be a lot taller than any other ship on the sea at the time. From Finland, from Denmark, from wherever else. Any other ship on the sea, he wanted his ship to be the tallest. And the designer tried to talk him out of it, saying, listen, according to the dimensions I've already created, you cannot have a ship so high, it won't sail, it'll capsize. No, I am the king, you do what I say, or your neck will be stretched. So, not wanting his neck on the line, he created this tall ship, which was not in proportion to the dimensions he had already created. And when that ship left the harbor, it went just a short distance and it sank. And it stayed underwater for many years, till just recently, when they had the capacity to dredge it up from the harbor, they dredged it up. And now it's a museum, and there's a story about it. What good is the ambassador, or the amiable person, or the captain, or the cook, or the engineer, if that ship is not going to make it out of the harbor? Are you understanding? So in the same way, what good is your intelligence if you are not intelligent about the right things? What good are your emotions if you are passionate about the wrong things? What good is your physical health if you are living wastefully? What is the use of all that? What is the use really of being in command of a life that is not well designed? What is the use of that? Just look at what's happening in the West. So much opulence in the West. No potholes in the roads. The electricity works, running water. So much is already here. And yet, what is the use of all this if you're not really happy? What is the use of all this if you cannot really appreciate your blessings? when your mind is not channeled on the right frequencies, what is the use of all this that you enjoy? So, of all the things we can choose to alter or transform our lives for the better, of all the things we can choose for self-transformation, the one choice we need to make is the choice for inner and outer excellence. Inner and outer excellence through self-design. What does the word design mean? Yes. It means to plan or to intend a particular outcome. To design something is to plan or to intend a particular outcome. In the context of this talk, it means to design a refined life, not a coarse life, a refined life. A life that is endearing to us and to others. Because it is only through a well-designed life that we are able to transform ordinary relationships into extraordinary ones. We cannot transform ordinary relationships into extraordinary ones when our lives are not well designed. Impossible. To design anything well, however, we require the wise counsel of someone who has perfected the art themselves. Yeah? To design anything, we need some wise counseling from someone who knows the art. So what do wise people tell us in relation to self-design? What do they tell us? You haven't been listening, I see.
First, love yourself.
Love
Value
you-
yourself.
Love yourself, value yourself, okay?
Find a spiritual teacher.
Yeah! Give her 5 points. Find a spiritual teacher, okay, that's a good one. What they tell us is that if we really wish to know the truth of our magnificence, if we really wish to know the truth of the magnificence of the world we live in, we will not find it in the shopping malls, nor on any vacation. If we wish to know the truth about ourselves and how incredibly profound we are, to really love ourselves in fullness, we need to cultivate our phenomenal ability to be intuitive, inner tuition, intuitive. Because really, to know ourselves in our fullness, to know our magnificence, it cannot be known through reason and logic. Impossible. It has to be known only through a spiritual faculty. It has to be seen through insight, inner vision, not outside. Are you understanding, please? Because if it was so easy to love ourselves through reason and logic, we would be doing it. Oh, you're so good, look, you're so hot. No, doesn't work. The only way we can truly appreciate our magnificence is through an intuitive grasp of what is really going on here. This miracle of oneself is grasped through intuition, not through your reason and logic. Impossible. Yeah? So we need the right relationships to create particular outcomes. Only when 2 hydrogen atoms combine with 1 oxygen atom do you have a water molecule. For you to see your magnificence, it will not happen when reason and logic come together and your physical senses are looking for things. It doesn't happen. For it to happen, we require another sight, another vision, another faculty to perceive our magnificence. Okay, now before I talk to you about how to do that, let's see if we can perceive where the tea is. Okay. How do you cultivate your phenomenal ability to be intuitive? What do you have to do? One second, Sherry. I will AC pachu on karso. Off ki duje. How do you cultivate your phenomenal ability to be intuitive? What is required?
Meditate.
Meditate and levitate. Okay. What else?
Reflection.
Reflection. Beautiful.
Be present.
Be present. Learning. Right?
To practice and act on your intuition.
To practice and to act on the intuition. Right?
Yeah, be courageous and not fearful.
Be courageous and not fearful. Right? It is also to learn how to think, reflect, imagine, observe, and reason wisely and deeply enough. We need our sense faculties, we need the everyday mind to go beyond the everyday mind. Yeah? We need to learn how to think deeply, feel deeply, sense deeply, imagine, observe, reason, reflect deeply. And then, when we focus ourselves correctly, intuition starts to spark. Just think, when anyone who is passionate about a particular field reflects on that particular field, wants to know more about that particular field, doesn't he or she spark that intuition? When a doctor is really concerned about how to aid more people with his skill, and he really reflects deeply on his field of expertise, he will not spark the intuition for which a musician would spark, or an artist would spark, or an engineer would spark. He would spark the intuition related to his particular field, right? He would know intuitively how to make a qualitative difference in people's lives because he thinks and feels deeply enough. In the same way, when we learn to think and feel deeply enough in relation to our lives, then glimpses of intuition start to spark for us, till it becomes a regular occurrence in our lives. And the need for being insightful, the need for being intuitive, most of us don't even understand or appreciate how important it is to cultivate this need. Why is it so important to be intuitive, to be insightful?
It's the truth.
Because?
It's kind of like the truth.
Because it puts you in touch with the truth, right?
Helps you make the right decision.
Pardon me?
Helps you make the right decision.
It helps you to make the right decisions. Something else?
Puts you in touch with your unconscious and makes it conscious.
Puts you in touch with your unconscious, makes it conscious, and
Help you connect with who are appropriate to connect with.
okay, helps you to connect with what is appropriate to connect with, whoever is appropriate to connect with.
Helps your wisdom become light.
Yes, it arouses the wisdom within you, the inner intuition, yes. But isn't
Do you
this
see your vulnerabilities or like
the vulnerability of whatever it is you're trying to deal with, to see what you need to work at, you know.
It allows you to see what you need to work at to achieve your aims. Okay? Isn't this world filled with illusions? What we see is not always what is there. Yeah? Illusions after illusions. How do you navigate through these illusions? Especially the ones you fabricate for yourself. The excuses you make for yourself for why you can't, or why it's so difficult. And how will you ever unveil the sacred that exists in all things with just reason and logic? You can't. So to cut through the illusions in life and to make clear choices and to unveil your magnificence, to unveil the sacred that is in all things, we require intuition. We require insight. It is imperative. To be really happy in this world, it is imperative for us to cultivate this faculty. And yet, for the masses, it is not even important. What is more important, what is more urgent is TV. Hey, you can't miss that program. What is more important is to constantly be critical of yourself and others. That's more important. And what else is more important? Hey, we mustn't forget procrastination. Of course, we can put things aside till mañana. Yeah, that's more important, being intuitive. Hey, no one has died from intuitive starvation. You can just chill out for the moment. Crazy. But when we fail to be intuitive, when we fail to be insightful, then we remain unpolished and unprepared for life's pivotal moments. Do you understand what that means? Those very special occasions, those turning points, which shape our destiny. We remain unpolished and unprepared to meet life's pivotal moments. Think of the time in your life when you experienced that pivotal moment and you said yes to an intimate relationship with someone. Did it work out well? Or was there a fiasco? Think of a time in your life, those pivotal moments when you may have said no to getting into a car with your friends who were drunk, only to find out later that there was a tragedy involved. Your intuition somehow guided you. Just sparked somehow. Pivotal moments, the yes and the no. Should I go this way when I face those crossroads, or should I go another? How prepared are you? How polished are you to make skilled choices? Yeah? And those moments come visiting when we least expect them. Important choices. Incredibly important choices, but which we, because we are not perceptive enough, we think those choices are insignificant, not seeing the massive consequences related to those choices. We think those choices are insignificant. But no, there is big significance in those choices. In Japan and elsewhere nowadays, they take the shoots, small shoots of oak trees, and they tie a thin wire very tightly around the main root, just at the point where the trunk begins. Yeah, we're talking about bonsai plants. In Japan, they have the practice of taking these oak trees and tying a thin wire tightly around the main root just at the point where the trunk begins. And this stunts the growth of that tree to such an extent that instead of a large 80 or 100-foot oak tree, these shoots produce only tiny versions of themselves, 12 to 14 inches high. They reproduce all their qualities, but in miniature form. And although these small little bonsai plants live to the same length as a regular oak would, they display only a fraction of its magnificence. Yeah? A giant oak, what a spectacle to watch. A shelter for so many creatures, whereas a tiny bonsai plant is a shelter for just those little cobwebs. Are we not doing the same thing to ourselves when we fail to be intuitive? When we fail to be in touch with our spiritual heritage, are we not putting incredible clamps on our ability to be phenomenal? Are we not then limiting our supply, our channel of supply, which is our spiritual power and strength and magnificence, when we choose to live in fear and doubt and negativity? When we team up with the wrong relationships, are we not choking ourselves, just like that plant is choked with that wire? Would you say, or would you agree, that our best form of learning comes through direct experience, through trial and error? Yeah? The best form of learning comes through direct experience, trial and error. You don't learn how to ride a bicycle by reading books about balance. This is what it means. This plus this. You learn to ride a bicycle by getting on the bike, falling a few times, and through trial and error, you adjust yourself till you finally know balance. It's not an intellectual activity. It is an experiential one. How will you ever become a good mechanic or any kind of mechanic if all you do is read about mechanics but never really touch those parts? We learn best through direct experience, through trial and error. If you come home from school, suppose, well, think of yourself when you were a teenager, and you come home from school and you tell your parents, "Hey, Mom and Dad, guess what I did today? I smoked a joint." And your parents look at you as though they haven't heard what you just said, and then they go into a fit of hysteria. Will you share that experience with them again? Trial and error. It didn't work. The next time you're wearing glasses, your red eyes are not going to show. Yeah. But if your parents are really laid back and say, "Hey, sweetheart, you smoked a joint. Did you bring one for us?" then you'll be more keen to share your experiences with them. Trial and error, direct experience. But what happens when the consequences of our actions are not immediately visible? What happens when we can no longer observe the consequences of our actions? Because these consequences arise in a distant future. How do you learn then? Are you understanding? If you go to school and your teacher does not correct your homework, how do you know if you've comprehended the subject? There are so many things in this world, so many choices we make, whose consequences do not arise in the immediate present. It's not through trial and error that we learn, because these consequences arise in a distant future. Where do you think psychosomatic illnesses come from? Do they just manifest overnight? The ulcer, the other things, the diabetes? Oh, it's not psychosomatic, Behram, it's just something else. Where do these ailments come from? From seeds that we plant many years ago, from associations we make with ourselves and the world, the relationships we create, especially the relationships based in negativity and fear, lead to illnesses of every sort. But you don't learn through trial and error, because they come hidden, slowly. They are cumulative. It builds up over time. Before you know it, whoops, I've got high blood pressure. Whoops, there's diabetes there. Whoops, there's cancer. And cancer is something which happens to us. It's not something which we create. Understand, please, that almost every illness that you experience is self-made. And because you made it, you have the power to heal it. Not the doctor. You have the power to heal it. But you have to be willing to know your magnificence. Be in touch with it. So, once again, we learn best through direct experience, but we never directly experience the consequences of many of our most important decisions, because these consequences arise in a distant future. So how will your reason and logic help you then? Are you understanding, please? We all have a learning horizon. Okay? We all have a learning horizon, a depth and breadth of vision within which we are able to determine how effective or ineffective our choices will be. We have this depth and breadth of vision, a learning horizon, within which we determine the effectiveness or the non-effectiveness of our choices. But when our choices have consequences that reach beyond that learning horizon, it is impossible to know the consequences of our choices. Impossible to know with your everyday faculty. Are you understanding, please? These consequences, based on the certain choices that we're making, arise in a far distant future, stretching over years, decades, or even an entire lifetime. The results don't appear. They're not visible, like those particles. They're not visible till the right relationships come together. So the consequences related to our choices are not visible till the right conditions are in place. And then it comes about, those pivotal moments in our lives. The person we choose to marry. Our choice of vocation, the friends we rely on, our choice of livelihood, the vocation, the friends, our choice of our lifestyle, all these are important decisions. And each of these important decisions leaves us no scope, no opportunity for direct trial and error learning, because the consequences of these choices arise in a distant future. So what option do we have really for making clear choices. Because whatever we experience is a harvest of the choices we've made in the past. What option do we have really for making clear choices so that the harvest we receive is a beautiful one? Please tell.
Our intuition.
Mm-hmm. Yes, she's got it. Learning to be intuitive, which means also learning to think and feel and speak and act deeply enough. Because like we've said earlier, like I've said earlier, things don't exist in isolation. Being intuitive means not just intuition full stop. It means learning to think deeply, to feel deeply, speak deeply, reflect. All comes together. That's when intuition arises. Does it make sense, please? There are moments in our lives, that are far more important than years put together. Pivotal moments, very important moments. Moments which, if we had the choice, if we could, we would trade for a dozen years of our lives, because they were special. And we don't know when these moments are going to come upon us. How prepared are we for these moments? Because in those moments, we can either experience greatness or grief, depending on how we have lived in the past. How wise are you to experience those pivotal moments? Let me share a story from my life. After I graduated from college, and I was living in Africa for 12 years, in Nigeria. After graduating from college with a bachelor's degree in graphic design, I applied for my master's program to a college in Los Angeles. Usually, when people apply to such colleges, they apply to several colleges or universities and then wait for the answers and then they pick. But I had done my research and I'd found this one college which really was the one I needed to be in, intuitively. And then the reply came. I'd sent them my portfolio and the reply came back after some time, telling me in the very polite, diplomatic language to buzz off, without any reason why I should be buzzing off. And because I was already pretty good in art, and there was no logical reason for them to tell me no, when my father got home that day, when I received that letter, I said to him, "Dad, take a look at this letter. See what they told me." He said, "Oh my God, what's going to do now? You only applied to one college." I said, "Well, if you have trust in me, I just need a plane ticket and I'm going into that college by hook or by crook." So I went on a tourist visa, landed up in LA and convinced them that I was hot enough to be in that college. Okay, instead of 2 years of master's degree, I had to stay for 5, because the American standard is no other degrees are good enough, and I had to start my bachelor program again. I was willing to do it. I had to be in that space. I didn't know why, but I had to be in that particular college in LA. Only later on did I realize the importance of that pivotal decision. And the importance of that pivotal decision was that, for those of you who know astrology, well, I have 2 lines running through LA, astrologically speaking, Neptune and Uranus run right through LA. I didn't know it at the time. But when those two lines are aspecting your chart, whether you like it or not, you will be spiritually awake. So in the lap of materialism, my mind was going haywire with spiritual insights. I was almost like a salmon going to, what do they call it, spawn, where it needed to spawn. I could have chosen any college in the world to study in. My dad was willing to fund it. But out of all the colleges, I selected that one particular college in Los Angeles. And that's where my spiritual transformation took place. I knew I was not meant to be a designer. I was meant to design people's minds. So these are pivotal moments. When that rejection letter came to me, if I was not prepared, I could have said, oh my God, what am I going to do next? I would have been in a tizzy. But I was not in a tizzy. I had already visualized myself being in that college. And I made it happen. I had to be there. And I had to be there for 5 years for that bow and arrow to stretch to the fullest. Because I knew exactly within those 5 years what I didn't want to do with my life. And what I did want to do. So upon my graduation, I gave my degree to my mom, who was sitting there in the audience, and said, this is what you wanted, you keep it. I'm getting back to India. And I came back in search of teachers and teachings. And again, because I was convinced that I would find the right teachers, I found them. No doubt I had to wade through lots of weirdos, got very sick, got very disillusioned at times, but I found some magnificent teachers to train with. And not just in India, but also in Sri Lanka, in Thailand, and in Japan. But those are other stories to tell for some other occasion. Okay, pivotal moments, when they arise, how are you going to deal with them if you're not intuitive enough? If you haven't prepared the ground, how do you meet those pivotal moments? Please understand that success in any area of life doesn't just happen. To be successful, to be happy, to be joyous in your life, in anything, it doesn't just happen. You have to envision it first. You have to envision it first before you move in the direction of its fulfillment. You don't become an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer by chance. You take on these roles by choice. And it is important to learn to make these important choices wisely. So how would you define a turning point, a pivotal moment? How would you define it? And they're coming, out of the blue, they're coming. Are you prepared?
It's like a change in energy.
It's a change in energy, yes. What else?
Or something that perhaps continues on a path that's already existing.
It continues.
Well, I'm just trying to explain something that I'm not quite sure how to put into words, but like a moment that can take you on a path or...
Okay. Anybody else?
It's a decision. Like time and place where you make a particular decision that will take you on a journey either one way or the other. I know I've taken a lot of wrong turns at a pivotal moment in my life, and it affects you, like you said, down the track. When I think back, how it affected me. One decision I made affected me for 3 years to the point where I didn't think I was going to make it yet. I was just about suicidal by the end of that, but everything changed. But it took 3 years for that to change. point in life where you make a decision to go one way or the other.
Okay. A turning point is simply an occasion. It is an occasion that sums up and brings to fruition the choices you've made in the past. Okay? It brings to fruition specific choices, specific relationships you have formed in the past. Here it is. Here's the fruit. What are you going to do with it? So these turning points can either lead us to greatness or to grief, depending on the relationships we've established in the past. Over a period of time, the relationships we have formed then start to manifest in our lives over a period of time. So when these fortunate occurrences happen for us from out of the blue, these fortunate occurrences have not been beamed down to us by Scotty. Okay? These fortunate occurrences are really the inevitable consequences of our own decisions. And if we have been wise enough to make these decisions correctly, wisely, insightfully, then we experience joy and laughter. But if over the years we have lived in self-neglect, and then those turning points arise, it can devastate us. So things are not just happening to us, please understand. Things are happening by us. And it is important for us to know how to choose our moments wisely, how to make our choices wisely, because we don't know how far the effect will reach before it starts to fruition. Knowing is not enough. We all know the importance of relationships. We all know the importance of being in a healthy, loving relationship with others and with the fullness of life. And yet, how many of us are keen to learn how to perfect the art? How many people? Knowing is not enough. We need to do something about it. Okay. I have a meditation, and after that we can have some questions. Or we can have questions first and then the meditation. What would you like to do?
Questions first.
Questions first? Okay. What question do you have? Okay, so what we'll do is, I'd like you to sit quietly for 5 minutes, and then I'd like you all to share, like we did the last time. What is the most important thing you have understood from this talk? After you've done the sharing, then we'll have a guided meditation, where I will ask questions and you will just reflect. Okay? How keen are you to craft a refined life? How deeply do you desire to design a refined life that will be a blessing to you and to others? How deeply or how often do you notice the music, the poetry, the dance, theater, and art forms in nature? In nature which provides you with a perpetual festival of joy and gladness, are you conscious about it? Are you present to it? How often do you seek pleasure and comfort where it cannot be found? What are the opportunities you are missing by not being present to yourself and to the magnificence around you? When will you really understand that you cannot celebrate the great mystery of life through acquisitions, dollars, and bread alone? Because your most important food does not enter you through your mouth. Your most important nourishment comes to you through your heart. When will you feel the tragedy? When will you feel the tragedy of living on excessively low levels of spiritual nourishment? When will you be perceptive enough to know that this spiritual nourishment is already in and around you, but which cannot be tasted or absorbed for as long as you don't learn how to make your moments enthralling? For as long as you don't learn to let go of the non-essentials? Please know that you do not have to linger in the misty and oppressive valleys of your self-made fears and limitations. You do have the choice and the power to ascend to great heights of immense fulfillment that come from your learning how to be in a healthy and nurturing partnership with life. So when will you seize the moment? When will you seize the moment and reclaim your spiritual heritage? To know the immense fulfillment and joy which comes from being one with all things great and small. When will that be your pivotal moment? When will you really commit to inner and outer excellence? Your life is flowing by you. The days are flowing by you. When will it be important enough for you to wake up from your illusion and to embrace your magnificence? Breathing well, body relaxed.